The Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Gilad Shalit visits the United States. Dirty Dancing at 25. A major victory for financial campaigns against Israeli policies. And more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. The second longest serving Prime Minister of Israel passed away last week. Yitzhak Shamir was 96 years old. A member of the old guard of Israeli leadership and politics, Shamir had fought toward the establishment of Israel as a member of the controversial Irgun, and then its yet more controversial breakaway group Lehi, also known as the Stern Gang. He joined Israel intelligence service, the Msci, in 1955, serving for 10 years. Shamir's political career began in the party of Menachem Begin in 1969. When that became Likud, he became a member of Knesset under Begin and eventually succeeded Begin as prime minister when Begin retired in 1983. In the 80s and 90s, Shamir served as prime minister for longer than any prime minister in Israel's history other than the founding prime minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. Shamir was prime minister during the Gulf War of 1991. He famously opposed various peace initiatives, and when he reluctantly dropped his opposition to peace talks after then-President George H.W. Bush threatened to remove loan guarantees to Israel, Shamir's right-wing coalition collapsed and he left office after new elections. After leaving political life entirely some years later, Shamir developed Alzheimer's disease and spent the last few years of his life in a nursing home. One man Shamir had been critical of at various points was the man who is now Israel's prime minister again, Benjamin Netanyahu, also of the Likud party. And while Shamir was critical of Netanyahu at the time for what he termed a lack of decisiveness in relations with Israel's Arab neighbors, it's Netanyahu's indecisive approach to the ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel that's lately gotten him in hot water. This week, Netanyahu disbanded a committee that was to draft a new law requiring at least some ultra-Orthodox military service. The so-called Plesner Committee had been considering alternatives to the Tal law, which has allowed the ultra-Orthodox to avoid Israel's compulsory military service while they instead engage in Torah study. And now a deadline is looming quite large. The Israeli Supreme Court had set a deadline of August 1st for Knesset to come up with a new law regarding the ultra-Orthodox after declaring the old law unconstitutional. With less than a month to scramble, the military could end up imposing its own solution without regard for the Knesset's political concerns or for the concerns of the Netanyahu government. This is just the latest suggestion that Netanyahu, despite having what seems to be the most concentrated power of any Israeli prime minister in its history, still lacks some ability to control everything that happens within his government, especially when it concerns the ultra-Orthodox and the political far right. Of course, whatever the end result of the controversy over who will serve in Israel's military, the controversies regarding what Israel's military does continue apace. And now, probably the largest victory on the part of those hoping to get institutions and firms to divest from companies that profit from Israel's work in the West Bank and Gaza has perhaps opened the possibility of more such successes. Financial analysis firm Msci is a stalwart of the world of global finance. It serves more than 6,000 clients, and its various equities and indices are used and tracked by investors the world over. And at the end of June, it announced that it had recently removed the American firm Caterpillar from 3 indexes that are meant to track, quote, socially responsible investments. Msci said that it did so in large part because of the use of Caterpillar's bulldozers by the Israeli military to destroy Palestinian houses. Because a great many mutual funds, ETFs, and other investment instruments are explicitly based on indices like Msci's, this removal of Caterpillar from the 3 indices has meant a large sell-off of Caterpillar stocks, including one $72 million stake that had been held by mutual fund firm TIAA-CREF. While most of the reporting on Caterpillar has focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict exclusively, Msci listed several reasons for the removal. In a statement, Msci said, the key factors determining the rating include a January 2012 labor dispute and subsequent plant closing in Canada, an ongoing controversy associated with use of the company's equipment in the occupied Palestinian territories, management of environmental issues, and employee safety. As a legal and ethical matter, I need to disclose that I and members of my immediate family own Caterpillar stock directly and in index funds. Of course, when it comes to management ethics, many have been critical of Jewish groups for various failures, and now the Association for Reform Rabbis is being critical of its own denomination for what it has found to be unequal pay practices. Women rabbis in the movement have annual salaries $43,000 less than male rabbis in large Reform synagogues on average, and that's according to a study by the Central Conference of American Rabbis, or CCAR. That's a difference of nearly 25% for large congregations with 600 or more families. Their largest pay disparity is with those large congregations. Smaller congregations have the least pay disparity. The women rabbis still make more than 7% less than their male counterparts in those smaller congregations. Moving on, one major focus for Jewish women in recent decades has been the film Dirty Dancing. TJC's Meredith Gansman got to live out her film fantasies with a story this week on the movie's 25th anniversary.
It's been 25 years since Dirty Dancing was released, and you remember the story. Baby meets Johnny. Nice Jewish girl meets Borscht Belt employee. But dance brings them together, and we've been having the time of our life with them ever since. In honor of the anniversary and in partnership with Skinny Cow Ice Cream, the classic film is coming back to the big screen this summer. And what better way to kick off the celebration than with the star of the movie, Jennifer Grey.
Why don't you have the time of your life?
When you look back on that time, that taping and its release, did you ever think it would have the effect that it has had over the years?
I still can't believe it at all. I mean, I just think we just made a tiny movie. We made it with love and care and for no money. And it was made for the right reasons, you know, and the story was great. And it was just a magical thing. And the fact that it's had this long a life is very gratifying. The fact that it makes people happy, you know, that they feel good and feel reassured watching it.
Do you have a favorite part when you look back on it?
I feel like, especially now that Patrick's gone, when I see just when he takes me in his arms in that scene at night when I come back to his room and he's got no shirt on and he puts that song on, I feel a little misty when I think about that. Just, you know, because we were young. We were young and everything was possible. Everything was ahead of us, you know?
It was beautiful.
It was a specific time. And then when you see how fast that goes and how we're not all here forever, right?
And that night, the Dirty Dancing re-release launch party was all about living it up and cutting loose. But I must divulge, Dirty Dancing is one of my favorite movies, and I wasn't satisfied with only one night of dancing. I wanted to learn the moves from the movie that I have loved for so many years. So I turned to ballroom dance instructor Manuel Rojas to show me the steps. Right.
Look up.
Right. To see how I step into Jennifer Grey's dancing shoes, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. Nobody puts baby in a corner, and nobody could keep Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit in prison forever. The famously captured and then famously released soldier was visiting the United States last week, and Christian Needon has that story.
Gilad Shalit took time out from his visit to New York City last week to publicly thank everyone who supported him during his 5 years as a prisoner of Hamas. With translation help from Israel's Deputy Consul General to New York, Shlomi Kaufman, Shalit addressed a luncheon crowd at the headquarters of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations. Conference Chairman Richard Stone introduced Shalit and recalled the occasion last September when Shalit's father, Noam, came to New York to speak out about his son's continued captivity.
And we saw on your father's face during that day that someone who was not seeking public life had been thrust into worldwide attention and to a 24-hour-a-day effort, including sleeping essentially in a tent on the street in order to procure your release. Though we were hopeful, we really would have danced on the tables had we understood that you were so close to being released.
To see more from Gilad Shalit's visit to New York City, please tune in to the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. That's all for this week from all of us here at the Jewish Channel. Be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 291, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and now on Comcast Cable in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.